So here's what we're going to be modeling today. We've got a little bit of a texture on it as well. I'm not going to cover the texturing in Photoshop today, but we'll give you a rundown of modeling and then the UV mapping and then rendering it out so that you can go ahead and create something like this in Photoshop. Pretty simple, and I could even tweak this a little bit more to kind of round off this square shape to make it look a little bit better. But for now, I would say that looks good enough for this. So we'll go ahead and get started. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started modeling. So we have 4 viewports here. Right over here is our quad menu. And I'm just going to work out of 1 because it's a little bit faster for me. So I'm going to change this to 1. Now this particular one, you'll see it says top here. I can hit F for front, T for top, L for F, left, or P for perspective, where I can get back to looking at anything in 3D, which we don't have anything quite there yet. So, alright, we'll go ahead and start with our front here, and G turns your grid on and off. So let's go ahead and start with a box. So we'll go ahead and let's actually switch this to our top view. We'll go ahead and draw a box. We're going to name this Sword 01. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that this is a perfect square box. So we've got a length here. Let's go ahead and make this just 40, and we'll make the width 40, and we'll go ahead and make the height 150. Now we can go ahead and hit F for front, do F3, F4 to get into our edge faces mode. In this case I want shaded. Realistic's fine too. I'm going to go ahead and go into perspective, select our box, and I'm going to go ahead and right click and convert this to an editable poly. The other thing that you could do is if you wanted to throw on an edit poly modifier, it's the same thing. The only difference is whenever we get into collapsing, it'll always be an edit poly. So if we collapse this, hit yes, edit poly. So you'll see we'll collapse a few times today. Alright, so we'll go ahead and go into the polygonal selection mode here. And I'm going to select the first box. And let's go ahead and actually start with bottom. I'll do this from front view. We're going to do the bottom part of the handle. So now we could extrude straight down, but what I'm going to do is do a bevel. Click the options box here. By group is fine. That's this first one. And we're going to extrude down. Yeah, maybe about 9. And then drag out our handle there. And you wouldn't have to do the exact measurements, but close to that. Now the polygon is still selected. I'm going to go ahead and extrude straight down. I'm going to do a little bit more, so maybe 20. And then we're going to do bevel again. And it's got the same settings, but this time I want to actually I'm going to actually bring that in the opposite way now. And that looks pretty good to me, so we'll go ahead and check that off. Okay, so we go into perspective now. We can kind of take a look at it, like how that looks so far. Let's go to the front view. I might make this handle just a tad bit taller. Okay. Now we're going to go ahead and create the hilt, I believe is what it's called, but let's go ahead and get started with that. So let's do the bevel, which actually bevels and extrudes. So we're going to bevel up a little bit, and let's bring it out. maybe about right there, that's good. And then we'll extrude it up. Yeah, let's go ahead and bevel it again, and this time inward. And that's good. Alright, so let's go into perspective now. Kind of see what it's looking like so far. It almost looks like a pillar. Alright, so actually we're going to go into our top view. Now the trick to this is we don't really need to be any kind of mode here, so we can just click up here to turn off the modes. We're going to go to rotate, and let's make sure we have rotate snapping on, and we're going to rotate this 45 degrees so that it's lined up right here. And it's not quite centered, you could see it's slightly off, so let's go ahead and put these the X, Y, and Z, make sure they're all zeroed out. Awesome. So everything's set there. Now this is going to make it a little bit easier for us to do the actual sword part. So what I'm going to do now is take the top of the hilt or handle here, and we're going to do what's called an inset. We're going to inset that in just a little bit. So in my case, I guess we'd say 4. Go ahead and check that off. I'm going to switch to vertex mode. I'm going to grab these two vertices, and I'm going to simply scale them on the Y axis. See how I'm highlighting the green line? I'm going to scale them in. And we could even do this in our top view so we can kind of see what we want the sword to look like. Alright, I think that looks pretty good. Now we can grab this polygon that we've got. We'll go into our front view, and we're going to go down to the Edit Polygons rollout and extrude that, and we can just pull it straight up here. Now I've extruded it, but you know, this is maybe not quite the same height that I want, so let's go ahead and bring this up. Now in the front view here, I'm kind of noticing there's some things that I don't like quite about this, like the hilt matching everything, so I can just select all these points, and I'm going to scale them. Actually, let's do polygons. I'm just going to click down here and drag across, and then I'm going to make sure I've got this center here, and I'm going to scale it all down just a little bit more. And I'm going to go ahead and bring that back up on the Y. So it's a little bit skinnier. Still maybe not quite the way I want it, so let's I just hold Alt and minus, scale this up a little bit more. I could use blueprints for this, but I'm just kind of guessing. Alright, so that looks pretty good, I think. At this time, I could make any minor adjustments, just so I don't mess up my perfect shape here. Scale on the X. Yeah, the handle is at least perfect, but we can kind of make this match up a little bit. Go into perspective so you can kind of see. So let's go ahead and get these points here. So 2 right here and the 2 right here. We go to our left view, and we're going to scale those in. Now you can see the blade, how thick it is, the sword. This allows us to kind of see the handle. So I don't want these sticking out too much. Pretty even. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and select this top polygon here and extrude it out just a little bit for the tip of the sword. And what we can do now is we're going to change modes to vertex mode. We only need 1 point at the top here, so I'm just going to select all 4 points here. And you're not going to see this under Edit Vertices, but if we go to Edit Geometry, we have Collapse. We can go ahead and collapse that. We can also go ahead and select these points here. We could even scale them in if we wanted, get a different shape. And we could add some more geometry, but we're going to just keep it basic for now, so we got that. So now the sword is, we've got it basically modeled out here. I might want to tweak a few things. This handle, probably want it a little bit thinner than the sword because I'm kind of doing this off of the Gladiator. So the handle a little thinner. There we go. That's actually much better. Much, much better. Alright, so we got our sword done. Now we could throw Unwrap UVW on here, but I'm going to show you an easier way. Because this sword is going to be symmetrical, we're just going to have it repeat on one side to the other. So what we can simply do is, first things first, we're going to select, make sure your sword's selected. And then I'm going to go to the Display tab. Sorry, Hierarchy tab. We're going to do Effect Pivot, Center to Object. Now it's just going to put it in the center to make sure everything's good, and then you can turn off Effect Pivot only. Now what we're going to do is select one half of the sword and delete it. And the only problem we're going to have an issue with that is that this polygon doesn't have a line through the center of it for us to select one half of the sword. So what we're going to do is take these 2 points here, and we're going to continue that edge by connecting them. So under Edit Vertices, we hit Connect, and because those 2 are selected, it connects them. So you only want those 2 points. Now what we can do is we're going to go ahead and go into our front view. No, left view. And we're going to grab the polygons, and we're going to go ahead and select one half of this. And what you want to do is go into perspective mode and make sure that you have only one side selected. So see how the bottom of the handle now is split, top of the sword's good. And then we can go ahead and delete that. Now, the reason why we reset our pivot and made sure it's right in the center is because we're going to throw on our symmetry modifier, and that will mirror everything. And we could put the symmetry on now, but let's go ahead and do our unwrap UVW, and then we'll put symmetry on last. So we'll unwrap UVW. We will then open the UV editor here. And let's take a look at everything. What I like to do is just move them out of the way. If I already had something painted, you'd be able to see it in here. But I'm making a sword from scratch, so we're gonna do our own UVs and then have to paint it. So let's first start with the sword handle itself. So I'm gonna go into polygon mode here. Now by default, if I try to select my sword, I can't because I deleted the front side, so it's actually the back. So you could change this to back, or I could just go ahead and uncheck ignore back facing. Now I can just drag over, select all these polygons, and we're going to do under the peel rollout, which is also right here in the UV editor, and we can just quick peel it. Now if it does this to you where it separates it, but yet it didn't actually peel it out, just click it again. Click it a couple times is what I would do. Make sure your angle snap is turned on, and we can go ahead and rotate that and then scale it down. And for now we'll just leave it right there. So let's go ahead and get our handle. Right. Go ahead and quick peel that as well. Just move that down out of the way. Select our two handles from here. Go ahead and click peel it. Now, because we started off with the box, what essentially has happened is it had default UVs that separated these. So let's figure out which edge goes to which. So this edge goes over here. So let's go ahead and move it over here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch it together by clicking Stitch to Target. So it'll stitch this red to blue. It's color coded. And it would stitch it. The easiest way is going to be Stitch to Custom because it'll snap them together. Done. So now if we turn on the cluster selection, we just click once, we have it selected. We can bring it over here and scale it down. And let's go ahead and select these polygons here. Alrighty, quick peel that out. Here we go. Now we could actually separate the bottom, which in some cases would be easier if we were going to put any detailing on it. So we'll go ahead and just separate that out so you can see what it looks like here. And just quick peeled it right out. Now we need to pack these in. So the first thing that we can go do is just to let you know, there's tools, pack UVs. Now if you have rescale clusters, it will rescale them automatically and fit them in. So we'll go ahead and, oops, I had something selected, so don't select any of them unless if you're going to select all of them. Then you can do pack UVs. Alrighty. Oh, there we go. So it kind of packed them in there neatly. The only thing is we have all this wasted space. Now we could even split this in half if we were going to do a second sword. So what we're going to do is go ahead and make use of this space. That's the bottom. Top. Got the handle. So we can go ahead and put this at, say, 45 degrees. Put it right in the center here. and we'll go ahead and scale that up. Let's make it fit. Now it's definitely going to be a little bit harder for the average person to paint like this in Photoshop, but we can change some things around first to make it work for us. We can go ahead and resize the handle a little bit, bottom. And then we've got our two pieces. Now this is going to be symmetrical, so any of these we could duplicate after we do symmetry to change this around if we wanted. If we wanted to add some asymmetry, go ahead and scale these up. Now if we look at these are actually identical on each side, so when it quick peeled it, it really didn't quite line it up as neatly as I would have liked. So what we can do is go ahead and fix up some of these issues. So you'll see that this one is bigger than this side, which isn't really how we modeled the sword. So I'm going to go ahead and use our tools here, vertically align. Let's bring this down a little bit. We could go as far as to selecting these points. And just kind of line them up. Then we could essentially figure out what we want to change about this to maybe make it match up a little bit more to fit what it really actually looks like. So it's a little tight there. So that's fine. So I'm going to take a moment here to fix this other one real quick, and then we'll move on. Alright, so I kind of lined up my UVs here. There's one thing that I wanted to cover, and that is if I select these two top polygons, you notice they're on the bottom here, and to paint it would be a little bit easier to know that the top is actually facing the top. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around. And then when you're doing your own UVs, it's best if they look like the shape that you're actually doing. So if we look at this shape here, it has a triangle shape. Therefore, I would consider getting more of a triangle shape. So we'll select both of these points and bring them down here. And select this point, bring it up. So we're getting close. That kind of has more of a triangle shape. Let's see here. Sort of bring these in. And actually, I think that I'll also go ahead and bring them up too. Maybe we want to just bring these up so it has that same kind of square shape. It's just slightly tilted. Look at the bottom one here. This one definitely needs to be fixed. There you go. Then for detailing purposes, we can go ahead and kind of make these fit and rotate, move into place. If you had anything else that you could fit in here, that would be wise to use up all the space that you can. So we still have extra space here, but we'll go ahead and call this good for now. Save this. Now, if you were ever worried about losing your UVs, you can go File, Save UVs. It'll save this UV file. So we could call that, being this a lab, call it Sword Lab UVs and hit Save. Now I already have mine down here, so it's good to go. We can close this out. And then the other trick is, so we don't lose anything with stacking more things on here, I'm going to go ahead and bake these UVs in so it kind of saves them currently. So we'll go right click, collapse to. It says if you collapse, you'll be losing some of the parameters here. That's fine. We hit yes. And it went ahead and baked those in. So now we're good to go. Now I see we've got my right side here, so you can see the front. There was nothing there, and the back is actually facing, but that's okay. So we'll go ahead and throw in on a symmetry modifier. Hit S twice, go to symmetry, and we can do top view. And you can see how it's not quite there. So what we want to do, we can just rotate this all the way around. Because snapping's on, it's nice and easy. We can then go back to our perspective. And now our UVs will be on top of each other. So this side of the sword will be the same as the other side. And at this time, that's good to go. Then we would go ahead and set this up in Photoshop so we can paint it. To do that, what we're going to need to do is do Unwrap UVW again. See the green seams here for where we had our seams at. Open UV Editor, brings that up. And you're going to go to Tools and then Render UVW Template. Click that. And the width and height, this particular one, I'm probably just going to do 1024 and keep it kind of low for now. For being a sword, that's probably fine. Could even do 512 by 512 and it still look okay. This is just for the color details for where it renders, fill color and the edge color. We would just go ahead and click Render UV Template. It's pretty big on my screen currently. Whoop. It's a little bit bigger than what it's going to let me show. That's okay. So if I zoom out, it starts to glitch and not show you all the details. But then you would hit Save. UV Template. And let's go ahead and save this as a target file. Click Save. You could put your name in here if you wanted. And anything else that you wanted to do. Go ahead and click OK and press it. And it'll show up on our desktop now where we can open up this file and in Photoshop and be able to paint it. So we can go ahead and close this out. We can just delete the unwrap because we didn't make any changes to it. And once we upload our painted texture in Photoshop, we'd be able to see our painted sword.